Bangalore office, India, and I work predominantly on software issues, and I think I've interacted with most of you. And before we get into the training itself, I would like to cover some housekeeping items. So, in case at any point of time during the training, if you have a question, you will notice that in the Zoom window, there is a chat option that you can use to direct your questions. And my colleague Rakshit will be assisting you there. He'll be answering all your questions. But also during the training, after probably 10 slides or so, I'll be also looking into the chat box to see if there are any unanswered questions. Also, another thing is if at any point you cannot hear me or if there's a technical issue, then you can always use the chat box and let me know, and we can pause and make sure everything is all right. So, having said all that, without wasting any more time, let's get into the training. So, today's agenda is as follows. Firstly, I have the introduction, which will cover what Modus Toolbox software is, what the software installer offers, and then what were the design goals that went into while we created Modus Toolbox, right? So we'll be talking about that. Then we'll be getting into the core tools. Basically, here we'll see the new build infrastructure that we have with 2.0 and what other changes that we brought in with the 2.0 release. And we'll be talking about each one of them on a very high level. And just to make things interesting, then we'll also get into creating a project, and we'll also see how it's so much easier now to run anything on our PSOC 6 devices using Modus Toolbox. And also with the 2.0 release, we introduced a lot of new terminologies. So we'll be talking about BSP, we'll be talking about HAL, we'll be talking about PDL and other libraries that are now available with the 2.0 release. So do not worry about what each of these terms mean right now, because it's very easy to get intimidated. So we'll be talking about that in detail later. And we'll also cover the different ecosystems that we now support, like the Embed OS ecosystem and the Amazon FreeRTOS ecosystem. Okay, so let's jump into the introduction. What is Modus Toolbox software? So as the name suggests, it is a collection of tools, and all the libraries are provided. And the best part about this is it is cross-platform. For those of you, I think most of you have worked on PSOC Creator since the beginning, and you all know that it is only supported on Windows. And we have solved that problem now. Modus Toolbox is now supported on Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, so you can run it on your favorite environment. So what does the software include? So it will have a bunch of configuration tools which will help you to talk to the different drivers in PSOC 6 and help you generate code. That way you need not start from scratch. Everything is done for you, and everything is that much easy. And the next thing is we have introduced a couple of low-level drivers. So PSOC 6 is a very sophisticated device, and to talk to it, we have created the low-level drivers so that we can abstract you from knowing about the hardware details. And with this, you can just make use of some APIs to talk to hardware, and then you'll get your output. So it's that much easy. And apart from this, we have a couple of middleware libraries that you can use, like MWin, for the graphics support, or we have a couple of other libraries like the RGB LED library, which you can use and display different colors for the RGB LED. So basically, what I'm saying is we have support for different libraries now on top of the low-level driver, so that you can directly just enable them and then run it on your hardware. When it comes to operating system support, we support Amazon FreeRTOS, we support Embed OS, and then we also have support for the vanilla FreeRTOS. Okay. So the last thing is the Modus Toolbox IDE itself, which is based on Eclipse. And for those of you who love Eclipse, then this will be something that you will like. and it will help you with all the different features like auto completion, and also setting different things. Everything is in one place there. Like you can access all the documentation, the tools, the configurators, everything in one place. So the IDE makes it very easy to have everything, and it's like a house which encompasses everything. And as I told you, when we designed Modus Toolbox 2.0, these were the things we had in mind. So we wanted it to have all the resources that you would need to create your application, and uh, that is basically the comprehensive part of it. And also, you must be able to choose what resource you want in your workflow, when and at what point of time you want to enable it, that if you want to disable it. So you need to have that flexibility. So it is very flexible, and it is atomic. So you can use just the resources you want. We have a huge library of resources, but you can just use the resources that are specific to your requirement, and then create your application. So here is a picture of the high level architecture and what all resources you have with the Modus Toolbox software. So at the top you have the user level application, which interacts with each of the resources which you enable based on your application. All right. So note that here some of the libraries are not developed by Cypress. It is supported by our product. So you can use third-party libraries and then interface with our devices, right? So when you install Modus Toolbox, so what do you get? And as part of the prerequisite for this training, I sent out a document asking you all to install Modus Toolbox and have a look at it. So if you looked into the Modus Toolbox installation directory, then you would have noticed that there are two folders. One is the IDE 2.0 folder, and then the Tools 2.0 folder. And what they contain is uh, it contains the build system infrastructure. So when you create your application, you need something to build and compile your application, and that is basically part of the installer, and that's called the build system infrastructure. We'll be talking about it in the upcoming slides. It also contains all the configurators and tools. And what I mean by the by configurators is, let's say you want to talk to the BLE block, and we have a BT configurator, and you can enable the gap profiles or the GAT attributes. You can set everything up and then just click generate code, and you can just use the code that has been generated in your application. So it is that much easy. We did not worry about the hardware details, and obviously the IDE itself. So if you, let's actually have a look at the folder. Okay, so here in the IDE, if you go over to Eclipse, you have the executable, which if you double click, it will open up as the Eclipse IDE, and then you can go ahead and create your application, which you'll be seeing in a few minutes. So this is the IDE itself, and then we have the tools folder. And if you look at each of the folders, each of them is basically either a configurator or a tool that you would use to create your application. So as I mentioned, there is the BT configurator. If you want to use captions, then you have the captions configurator, and it has the configurator and the tuner for for performance, for improving the performance of captions, widgets, and buttons. So all these tools are now available. And the best part about this is you need not use them as part of the IDE. You can always double click on them and invoke it from anywhere, and it's a standalone tool. So you just open up the tool, you target the device that you want, and then you can play around with the different settings, and then generate code in a particular target directory that you want, and then you can just use it in your application. So all of these tools are standalone, and it is supported on all platforms. Okay, we'll be getting into each of these tools and configurators. I just wanted to show you what comes as part of the installer package. Okay, so now the question you will ask me is, I talked about a lot of libraries being available in the previous slide, and with the installer, I don't see any one of them. So where are all the libraries, right? So what we see in the installer is the three things that are highlighted here. So you get the ID, the configurator and tools, and the build system infrastructure, and the rest of the uh, things here on the side, to get all these libraries as part of our GitHub repository. This is the official link to our Cypress repository, and all of our libraries are hosted there. And based on the ecosystem that you want to target, you can download any one of those libraries. So let's say you want to target the MCU and Bluetooth SoC ecosystem. This basically means that you want to develop an application for targeting PSOC 6 devices, and probably use Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and BLE. Uh, and you will just download the libraries as part of which are part of this ecosystem. If you want to use embed, then you will probably use only the resources which are specific to embed, and not use anything else. So as part of embed, you have embed OS, TLS, and cloud services, which is basically Pelion, which is what they support. And also the Amazon FreeRTOS ecosystem, which is something that we newly introduced, and it offers the FreeRTOS kernel and a huge ecosystem of libraries, and you can connect to their AWS cloud to access a wide variety of services. Okay, so this is where the SDK is, and to access it, you can go to the repository. But then, to make things easier, we do it for you when you create an application, and you will see that in a bit. So don't think that if you want to develop something, you will have to go to the repository each time and then download the libraries from them. Okay, so now talking about the core tools, here are the core tools which come with Modus Toolbox. So we have the build infrastructure, which have been talking about since the first slide, and we'll be getting into the details of that. We'll be talking about each of the configurators and tools. We'll be looking into the different utilities, and finally we'll be talking about the Modus Toolbox ID itself, right? So the build infrastructure, and what is it, right? So what does the build infrastructure do? It helps you to create a project. So it can either be a Modus Toolbox IDE project, or a folder that just contains all the files that you would require to create an application, right? And the next thing is, it allows you to create an executable. So the build infrastructure will give you a project. It will then have options for you to compile the project and generate the executable, which is nothing but the .elf file or the .hex file or the .map file. So it generates all of that for you, and it also generates the configs that you see for the programming and debugging, and all that is now part of the build infrastructure. And at the heart of the build infrastructure is the makefile, right? It is basically a file which has different variables that perform a specific function. So let's say that you want to specify the hardware, then there is a variable for that which you can set, and this basically helps you to control the build and also specify how the build should look like. So if you want to add some compiler flags or assembler flags, then you would just specify the values for those variables in the makefile, and then you would just click build, and the makefile takes care of everything, right? And for those of you who used Modus Toolbox 1.1, then you would have seen this file called modus.mk, which was basically the makefile itself, but it wasn't clear what it was. So this time in 2.0, we just call the makefile the makefile. Okay, it's very simple now. We have removed stuff that is confusing, and everything is now done with a simple makefile. And I'll tell you why that is important, right? So as I told you, the make file has different variables to control what the flow should look like. So here you can see that here is a snippet of the make file, and it has comments for each one of them to tell you what it does. So here you can specify the target device you want to talk to, the app name, the tool chain that you want to target, the different configs. You can use debug, release, or a custom config, and so on and so forth, right? So all of this is now in a single make file, and unlike 1.1, which had different options located in different tabs inside of Eclipse IDE, all that is now gone. So I think I have that mentioned in a couple of slides, which basically tells you that none of the options in Eclipse IDE are available. All of that is now controlled using a single make file. Okay. So now you will ask me, how do I get this make file, or how do I invoke the make file, right? And to do so, we have three different options. You can either use the command line, you can use the tool called Project Creator, or you can use the IDE itself, right? So we'll be talking about each of them. I'll be giving you a hands-on of each one of them so that you understand what I'm talking about. And if you want to get into the details of the makefile, there is a KBA already available, and you can look at the different options, and you can see how powerful it is when it comes to controlling how the application flows. Okay. So let's get into some hands-on here. I think all of you were successful in installing Modus Toolbox. If anyone had any problems, you can tell it probably in the chat window, or you can also go off mute and then tell me if you had any problems. But if everyone's good, then probably I'll just show you how you can create your new application. So in the quick panel here, you would have seen the new application wizard, and when you invoke that, you get this particular window. And here you'll notice that you no longer have devices, you have something called the board support package. Okay. In simple words, this is nothing but the different boards that Cypress offers, and we have created a package which provides you files specific to these boards. Okay. We'll be talking about what each of these files contains later on, but this is what it is on a high level. So you can choose the target kit that you want. Let's say I choose the Proto board, and you'll have a short description of the capabilities of this particular board and the features of this board. So you'll also notice that it lists the MCU, the device basically, and then the connectivity device which comes on this board. And then you can click next. And here you'll have application templates. So you can choose whatever you want and then proceed. But if you notice here, there is a short description of what the example does and what are the things that are enabled as part of the project, right? So for our sake right now, we'll just create an empty application, and we'll call this the Blinky LED, which will tell you how you can blink a simple LED using just some lines of code. All right. So you'll click next and then click on finish, and this will create your application folder. Now, until this builds, let me show you the second method of creating your project. As I told you, the Modus Toolbox installation directory has these two folders. And if some of you haven't noticed, so this by default creates the directory inside your user profiles. So in my case, it's DDK. So it will be created here, and then if you go over to tools, here you'll find the project creator, and it is available as part of an executable, wherein one of them is a a GUI and other is a command line tool. Let's click on the GUI, and when you invoke it, you'll notice that this is something similar to what you saw inside the IDE itself, right? So again, it's the same, but notice that this is a standalone tool now. You're no longer using the IDE, you're invoking it from the tools directory. And if you notice here, you have all the BSPs which you can choose. So let me choose the ProtoKit. When I proceed next, you have another option here to tell what the target location should be. So I'll choose the MTP SOC 6 project, and then I'll probably call it Blinky project creator. And then I can tell it what the directory it should be located in. All right. So I'll be putting it inside my documents directory, inside my projects, and probably choose this folder itself and then create the application.
I'm interjecting something that you pointed out, or the documentation pointed out. Avoid spaces in your naming. Correct?
Yeah, right. You need to avoid spaces in the naming, and in case the user path that you have, if it has special characters, then you need to locate Modus Toolbox in a custom location. And there are a couple of steps you need to follow, and there is a KBA which explains those steps, and Rakshit will be sharing that link on the chat window, and you can refer to that. All right. Sorry, I think I forgot to stop after 10 slides. So if there are any questions, probably you can ask now. So if you notice here, the console is basically printing what it is doing, and this is the same as what you see inside the Modus Toolbox IDE also. So basically what I'm hinting at here is both are same tools, but one is invoked through the IDE and the other is a standalone tool, right? And as I mentioned in the PPT, so there is a third option, and that is through the command line. And you do that by using the project creator CLI. So firstly, you need to open it up as a command line. So you can use sigwin.bat. So this is part of Modus shell. This is something that you need to use to run any of the tools or configurators, any of the tools in the Modus Toolbox installation directory, because you cannot use command prompt and run any one of them. All of them are POSIX based, and you'll need to use Sigwin for that. So let me go over to project creator. Okay, so now I want to use the command line interface to create the project. So firstly, I will use Modus shell and open up sigwin.bat, and then I will go over to this particular directory. Oh my God, okay. Okay, and here you can okay, so if you notice here, if you put in -- help option, it will tell you what the different options are, and then once you provide the parameters for this, then you'll be able to create your application. So this is basically what happens when you invoke it from either the IDE or the project creator tool itself. So this is just the backend process that happens. Okay, so these are the three methods, and Yeah, as I mentioned, so all these three methods will basically do a make get libs and get all the libraries that you would need for your application, right? So first of all, what is make get libs? Make is something, it's basically a command which is provided by Sigmin, and based on the parameter here, it will do whatever you specify. So in this case, get libs is used to get all the libraries that are required for your project, and we'll be talking more on this. But what I want you to understand from this slide is there are three ways for you to create your project, and I have showed you three different ways of doing that. All right, so here is just a quick recap of how we did it. In Modus, you would use the new application wizard and then proceed to choose the BSP and the template. In Project Creator, it is simple. You just invoke the tool, you choose the board support package, choose the template, specify the target directory, and then click on next. And finally, it will create your project folder. All right. Now, you all of you would be interested to know what what files or directories are part of the project once you have created it, and these are the files that get created. Here I have put in two different screenshots. So let me explain it clearly. Uh, First thing is, let's say that you have cloned the project from the GitHub repository. Uh, for those of you who don't know what clone means, it basically means that you download uh, the particular project files from the code example on the GitHub web page, and then you will store it on the local system. And another way is through the uh, project creator or from the Modus Toolbox IDE itself. So when you create your new project, all of these files get fetched from GitHub automatically, and all these files are available in your workspace directory, right? Now, if you import a project that has already been there in your local system, then it will basically create a copy of all these folders and files into the workspace directory. So you get another independent copy in your workspace directory if you are importing an existing project. But if you're creating a new project, then you will get all of those files directly, and they are fetched automatically for you from GitHub, and they will be placed in your workspace directory. Okay, so uh, what is auto discover and project creation? Uh, Auto discovery basically means that where the makefile is located. So here you will see that both these places have the makefile. So this directory which contains the makefile is called the makefile directory, and any folder or files that you put into this directory, all of them will be considered for the build process automatically, unless you say in the makefile that okay, this file should be ignored. So auto discovery in essence means all the files and folders in the makefile directory are considered for the build process. All right. So here, like I mentioned, when you use project creator, the files get created in the location you specify. And if you use the IDE, it will be available as part of your Eclipse workspace. So let me just show the project. 1 second, I think some of the, okay, let me show the directory which was created by the project creator. So here I have the Blinky project creator, which we created. And as I mentioned, so these are the files which get created as part of that. And you'll notice that there is the main.c, which is the source file, and the make file, which is used to control the build. Okay. And here you will notice that inside the libs folder, you have a couple of folders, and then I have a .lib file. Okay. So we'll be talking about each one of them in detail. Images is nothing but a folder which has the Cypress logo, so you can ignore that. And then the .git, so that you can use it as part of version controlling in your project. Okay. So this is building the project, but till then let's go back and yeah, so this is how the project will look like once it has been successfully created. And you will see all these files. And in your Workspace Explorer though, you will notice a couple of extra folders that get created. That is the mtb launch configs, the .settings, the .c project, and the .project. These files are something which is specific to Eclipse, and not something that you will actually need to change or modify. So this is something related to Eclipse, and you will not touch that. Okay. So these are the files you get when you create a project. Now, as I mentioned, all the files that you have inside your makefile directory are considered. So you might ask me, what are the files that get considered? And these are the extensions which are supported. So .c, .h, .cpp, .s, .a, basically for the static library. So you can use that. You have the .o files too. So all of them get considered in your build process. Okay. And makefile has some variables called includes and sources, which allow you to tell what directories to consider apart from the makefile directory as part of your build. And you can specify that. So let's say I have so my source 1 and my source 2 folders, which are outside the makefile directory, just one level outside the makefile directory. Then you would include that in this fashion. So you would say includes equal to ... to go one level back, and then tell it to include my source 1 and my source 2 directories. And you do something similar when you want to include the .c files for the sources. Okay. Let me just open up the makefile so that you understand what I'm talking about. So here you'll see that I think I missed it. Okay, yeah, includes and sources, right? We have comments for each one of them so that you understand what each one of them does. So if you want to include source code, then you would use this library, and similarly for including other directories, then you would add your values here. Okay. So you have C flags, you have assembler flags, link flags, linker flags, and all that. You can also specify pre-build and post-build options. Okay. So everything is controlled using a single makefile. You need not go anywhere in the IDE. So as you know, the IDE has a lot of places for you to go and change stuff, but we have made it easier by removing everything and then just adding a single makefile to control the entire application. Okay, hope that makes sense, right? So let me just yeah. So as I told you, the libs folder is probably the main folder, which is very crucial for our application. And this is where all the libraries reside in. And by default, when you create your project, you only see the .lib file for the particular BSP that you have chosen, right? So let's say I chose the protokit while creating the project, then I will see only the protokit in the .lib in the libs folder. Okay. So what does the .lib contain? So the .lib is basically pointing to a GitHub repository and a particular repository that you want with the release version. Okay, let me just open it up for you so that you get clarity on what I'm talking about. So if I open up the bsp.lib, then you'll notice that it is a link to this particular BSP, and we are fetching the latest version of it by default. Okay. Now, when you create a project, you won't get all of this. So basically, it will have the .lib first, and it invokes the make getlibs. So when the make getlibs is invoked, which is basically done automatically, and it will basically import all of these libraries and also the kit specific files. Okay. Now you will ask me, if the .lib only points to the particular board, how are these other folders getting generated, and what are these folders, right? So let me just talk about the BSP first, and then we can proceed to each one of them. So the BSP basically will contain all the kit specific files, and that is basically the bsp.c.h files, and files which are related to CM4, CM0, and also the configurators like design.modus, which will allow you to configure peripherals, clocks, pins, and all that. Okay, we'll be talking about that in detail, but this is what the BSP specific folder will contain. Then we have the PDL, right? The PDL is the low-level driver that you have to talk to the hardware, and it makes it so much more easier for you to interact with the hardware without knowing any of the details. Then we have files specific to the make infrastructure. So you get the make for the particular device, so for PSOC 6. Then we have HAL. So HAL is one layer on top of the PDL, and it gives you a generic interface to talk to the drivers. We'll be talking in detail about that. And we have the CM0P related files. So these basically contain the pre-built images, right? So Modus Toolbox 2.0 has support for CM0, and CM0P is supported through pre-built images. So there are 3 default configurations you can use. So the sleep basically enables CM4 and then goes into the CM0 core goes into sleep. The crypto basically starts the server on the CM0P core and then goes into sleep. And then you have the BLE subsystem. So it enables the BLE subsystem, and then it goes into sleep. Okay. So these are the 3 pre-built images that are available, and you just need to use any one of them as part of your application. Then these are some core libraries that you get as part of the application when it gets created. And based on the kit that you choose, we have enabled certain middleware to get downloaded automatically. So some of the kits that have Capsens support, you get the Capsens middleware that automatically downloaded. So these are basically files which are related to Capsens. Okay, so these files are automatically generated for any particular BSP that you choose, and based on the BSP capabilities, you get certain middleware which gets automatically downloaded. Okay, hope all that is clear. Now we are okay. Yeah, so basically the .lib will point to the latest version, but you can always modify it to point to a previous version, and then it will fetch that for you. Okay, so now the next question you'll ask me is, okay, so do I need to put the files here, or do I need to change anything? How do I get this particular .lib, or how do I add something here, right? So to make all this easier, we have something called the library manager. Okay, and the way it helps here is you can choose multiple BSPs. So it's not like since you have chosen one BSP at the beginning of the project, you need to stick to that. Nothing like that. You can enable as many BSPs you want based on the hardware capabilities, and you can then select the active BSP. So what I mean is, so here under tools, you will see all the tools and configurators available. So you can just click on each one of them to invoke it. And by default, the ProtoKit was activated because we chose this during application creation. And let's say I want to, run this application also on a BLE kit or a Wi-Fi BT kit, right? So you can just enable that and then click on apply. Okay. So as you see here, it is basically fetching the latest release for each of these BSPs. And when you click OK, it will run a make getlibs to get the particular libraries from GitHub automatically into your project folder. So all of that is being done for you. You need not worry about anything. And until it does that, let me show you what else is available. So here are some of the PSOC 6 BSPs, and here are some of the Wicked ports which are available. And here you notice there is another tab for libraries. And if you drop down each one of them, you will find the different libraries which are supported right now. We have the abstraction RTOS, which basically allows you to talk to FreeRTOS or RTX kernels directly, just have an abstraction over it. So you need not worry about what RTOS you're using, but on a high level, it basically supports FreeRTOS and RTX. And then you have retarget IO, which allows you to redirect some of the things to the standard IO library and use printf and scanf functions, basically the standard IO functions on UART, and a couple of other libraries here under middleware like Capsens. You have the firmware upgrader, you have emulated EEPROM, EMWin, FreeRTOS, and USB. So you can enable each one of them for use, and it will just get integrated as part of your project. So when you enable it, it is basically creating the folder. So like I told you, the Capsens folder was created. So when you enable probably emulated EEPROM or DFU, then you'll get a folder specific to that. All right. Let me just quickly check the chat section to see if there are any questions. Okay, so what is the advantage of using a CLI approach over the GUI tools? There's no specific advantage. It's just that the GUI will invoke the CLI itself finally. So yeah, you can choose to use either the GUI or CLI. You would use a CLI probably in cases where you are using scripts to create a project and then build it without having to do anything using a GUI, right? So that's when you would use a CLI approach. Does auto discovery automatically search subdirectories? Yes, it basically does it in an iterative fashion. So it checks at different depths from the root makefile directory, and all the files and folders are considered. So you need not worry about that. Is there a way to prevent certain middleware to not be downloaded? For example, if I'm not using Capsens, yeah. So if you're not using something, it's very simple. You can just disable each one of them, and that particular directory will be deleted. Okay. And another thing I want to talk about here is the version, right? So for each of the middlewares, you'll see that it is pointing to the latest 2.x release. But let's say you are working on the previous release, so it's very easy to go from one version to the other. And the way you would do so is you would click here, and then a drop down will basically allow you to choose the different versions which are available. Okay, so I have a lot of things opened here, so that's why it's probably a little slow. But I think you all get the point. Uh, Basically, it allows you to choose the different versions. And also at the top here, you'll notice that there is something called active BSP. And what this means is uh, if you have 2 or 3 BSPs chosen, I have probably the Wi-Fi Pioneer kit connected. I have the Proto kit connected, and now I only want to talk to the Proto kit. So how do I do that? So in the active BSP option, it has a drop down which will list all the BSPs, and you can select just the BSP you want to talk to, and everything is that much easier. Okay. So when you change the BSP, it automatically updates the makefile. So you need not worry about changing variables there. It will do all that for you automatically. And yeah, this is a very essential tool that we introduced with the 2.0. Now I told you that the make infrastructure will allow you to create executables, and basically these variables target, app name, toolchain, config, and verbose. These are some of the variables that are mentioned here, and based on the options you choose and the different flags that you set, it will build the application, and you will get the .hex and .elf files. And sorry. So we have ARM GCC packaged with Modus Toolbox. So you need not download it. It comes with Modus, and you can just provide this particular variable value for toolchain, and it works. But we also support other tool chains like ARM and IAR, and you need to download it separately and then provide the path to the tools in the makefile, and that's how you can use other tool chains. All right. And also make note of what platforms are supported on. So not all tool chains are supported on all OSs, so you need to look into that. So as I mentioned, we no longer have the IDE options. Everything is controlled using the makefile. So you don't see any of these options which were earlier there in 1.1. All of that is now removed, and 2.0 just makes it easier. You have a single makefile, you have a couple of variables, just edit one of them, and then yeah, you get the particular output that you want. So as I told you, when you build your application, you get the launch config. So I have built my application, the build finished, and you will notice that under the launches, you will see a couple of configurations which are generated. And one of them is for KitProg 3, and the other is for the JLink debugger. So when you click program, it will program the kit, and KitProg 3 is the onboard program debugger which we provide with all our kits. So you can just click on this, and you will have the program running right away on your kit. And also, I forgot to mention that in the quick panel, there is the documentation panel, which provides links to each of the different documentation that you would need while creating applications. So the API documentations, the kit specific BSP documentation, and the middleware documentation, all that is now available in the single quick panel here. So you have the tools, configs, the configurators, and the documentation all in a single place. All right. Now, what are the other tools that we have, right? So apart from Modus Toolbox, we provide the Cypress Programmer, and this is available as a standalone tool, and it is also inbuilt into Modus Toolbox. So if you don't have Cypress Programmer separately installed, everything will still work, but it is also available as a separate tool which you can download. And we have another tool called Firmware Loader, which allows you to jump from KitProg 2 to the latest KitProg 3 versions. And the benefit of this is KitProg 3 has support for dappling, right? So there are 3 modes on KitProg 3: the bulk, HID, and dappling. And if you want dappling, then you need to upgrade to KitProg 3. And it's very simple to do that using the firmware loader. And KitProg 3, here it's not a tool. Basically, it's basically a part of firmware loader. It's managed by that, and it is basically a piece of 5LP device which allows you to, which has the communication and debug firmware, and it supports CMSysTap and dappling, right? And then we have OpenOCD, and this is the default tool which is supported in Modus Toolbox. So here, if I go into Modus and then open up the run configurations, you will see that for this particular program configuration, this is all OpenOCD, right? So we have written all the OpenOCD commands here, and that is how it is interacting with the KitProg and then programming and allowing you to debug. Okay, so that is OpenOCD. And the dappling mode, the reason why we have it is so that we can support embed OS, and embed OS needs dappling mode, so we have support on that through the KitProg 3. Okay, so now let's get into the different configurators and tools. And here the diagram basically will tell you if you use the configurator where the files get generated. And this is a high level diagram here. So if you use the Bluetooth or the USB configurator, then the generated source files will be in the directory just below the application directory. And in case you use QSPI or SegLCD or Captions configurators, then all the files get generated inside the target BSP. And the reason why this is so is because you can have different configurations set up for your different kits that are connected. So let's say I have 2 different kits connected, like the Pioneer kit and the Proto kit. And since both of them have captions but different kind of support, then probably then you will enable just one button to work on one of the kit, and the other kit probably you will just use a slider. So you have the option of enabling just the resources you want for the particular BSP that you have connected, right? So like I mentioned, so not everything is through the design.modus file. So you have separate files for QSPI, SegLCD for captions, and each of them is basically going to invoke the configurator itself. Okay, so let me just show that to you quickly. So here are all the files that you get in the project, and inside the libs folder. So as I told you, the directory structure is as follows, and the main directory that you will look into is the libs, and inside here the target BSP folder, and inside component BSP design modus folder you will find the 3 different configurators. And if I click on design.modus, it will open up the configurator, and you can choose the different peripherals, pins, clock settings. And once you are done with the configuration, so let's say I want to enable UART, right? So then I would click on this. I would choose UART or SPI or I2C, whatever I want. I'll just click on OK. I'll set the different parameters, and then I'll just close, and it will basically create the files for me. Okay, so it is that much easy now, and all those files get created inside the generated source. Okay, so this is where all the files are located, so that you don't get lost here. I'm telling you where you can find each one of them. And suppose you invoke the CY captions, then it basically invokes the captions configurator. Okay, and apart from this, if you want more configurators, you can just go down here in the quick panel and choose just the configurator you need. Okay, So as you can see, when you open up the Captions configurator, you can enable the different buttons, the slider, and then set the different parameters, and then just save this, and then it will generate the files for you inside the generated source folder. So the cycfg captions.c and .h are coming from that particular configurator. All right. These are the new configurators and tools that we introduced, and the SegLCD configurator, as the name says, it will allow you to configure the segments and commons for interfacing and LCD. Then the project creator, we saw what it does. Then we have the power estimator tool, which allows you to calculate the power consumed by the target device, and the library manager itself, which allows you to choose the libraries you want, the BSPs you want, and also manage releases in between them. Okay. Now, these are the most commonly used utilities when it comes to embedded systems, and we provide it packaged with Modus Toolbox. And these are basically GCC, GDB, OpenOCD, and JRE. So all of them are now packaged as part of Modus, and you can just use them out of the box. You need not do anything. All right. Talking about the IDE, so it is 100% optional. The reason why I'm saying this is because you can go from start to finish without using the IDE, because everything is now available as a standalone tool. It is all of them can be invoked using maybe directly or using the command line, and then you can build your application, create the executable and program. So you need not worry about opening the IDE itself. So you can do everything without the IDE. The reason for having the IDE is mostly to make things easier, and everything is in one place. So that's the only reason probably you would want to use the IDE, and also it makes development easier, right? So with Eclipse, you have the different features that you get. So now talking about the software enablement, right? So I spoke about the different configurators and tools, but what about other libraries and ecosystems, right? So let's talk about each one of them in detail. So as I mentioned already, we have 3 different ecosystems now, and to give you an idea about how the support is on all 3 ecosystems. So I have classified our software into these 4 categories: the low-level resources, the middleware, BSPs, and code examples. And we'll see how and how many resources are available on these particular ecosystems, right? So what is low-level resources firstly, right? When we say low-level resources, it is basically libraries that are specific to the device, and they help you to interact with the device and abstract the hardware level details. So as I mentioned, we have the peripheral driver library for PSOC 6, and we introduced the HAL on top of it to make it generic, so you can access each of the drivers in a very simple manner, and you need not worry about the device itself. So it makes it device agnostic. And also we have a couple of other libraries which are available that you can use directly and not worry about writing code from scratch. Okay. So coming to the new terminologies that we introduced with Modus Toolbox. So we have the peripheral driver library. It offers an extensive set of libraries to interact with all the peripherals, and this makes development of software so much more easier. And we have APIs for each and everything, so you need not worry about writing to having to write anything from scratch. And this is basically the low level driver uh, which is interacting with the hardware. So this is like at the bottom most level which talks with the hardware. And on top of the PDL we have the HAL, and one call to to any of the drivers will basically it basically runs on top of the PDL. So invoking the HAL will basically invoke the respective PDL, and then it will call the particular PDL for that particular driver. And you need not worry about the resource allocation, because HAL takes care of that for you. And let's say you have a device and you don't want to worry about what resources are supported. So you just tell the HAL, okay, I want to talk to this particular driver. You initialize that particular driver, and it will basically return saying that, okay, this is supported or not. So if it's not supported, you'll get an error. But if it's supported, it takes care of doing the resource allocation, basically setting the pins or setting the clocks. So all of that is done for you. Okay. And we have been talking about board support package. And the reason why this is important is because uh, we have now created a common language for talking to the commonly used peripherals on the kit, like the LED or the switch. So we have named them as user LED 1, SW1, or LED 1. Basically, for the RGB LEDs, we call it CYBSP RGB LED green, RGB LED red. What this means is, let's say you have two different kits, and the RGB LED has different pins assigned to them. And if you have a common naming for each one of them, saying LED1 or LED2, then if you use LED CYBSP user LED1, then this application remains constant across all the boards. So you need not worry about the pins that each one of them is assigned to, and the application just works on each of the boards. Now, let's get into the IDE so that we can create a simple application. So here in main, you will see that we have three different header files. One is the PDL, one is HAL and BSP. And note that you need not use the HAL or BSP. It's completely optional, but using them just makes it so much more easier to interact with the different blocks. Okay, so first we have the BSP init. This basically checks if all the different resources on the board are initialized, and once they're initialized, it returns a success. And this is basically to enable all the interrupts. Now, after this is where you will write your code. And if you're using the HAL, then you will not get into any of these directories. You did not open any one of them. You just come here, you just use CYHAL as the prefix for using any of the HAL APIs. And then based on the block, so let's say I want to interact with the GPIO. Let's blink an LED. And the way you do it is you type in CYHAL underscore the driver name. And then if you press Control and space, which basically is a shortcut for auto completion, you will see the different APIs that are supported as part of the GPIO driver, right? So we have the init, which is same across all the drivers. So you'll have an init for each of the drivers. So this is the first thing you will do, and it will tell you the different parameters that you have. So first is the pin, and here you will use BSP specific macros, and I'll tell you the reason for doing so in a bit, but not sure why autocomplete is not working. Okay. Okay, so all the macros are available in the CYBSP types.h, and you'll see them here. So what I want is the user LED one. Okay, and I think in the make file. Yeah, okay. So here I'll just type in user LED one, and for the direction, we just use the HAL and give the direction as output. If you want strong drive, then in this case we need strong drive for driving the LED, and then the initial value we'll set it to off. Okay, so here we are initializing the GPIO and we are providing the value as CYBSP user LED1. And why this is important is because let's say I have two different boards connected, and if I give a particular pin name here, then if the board changes, then your application won't work, right? So instead, if we have the BSP, if you just use CYBSP user LED1, then if you have two or three different boards connected, then each one of them will get mapped to the particular pin on that particular board. So you need not worry about what pin it is mapped to. Makes it easier. Okay. Now in the for loop, we can just toggle this LED, and we need to provide the same LED macro. Okay, and we'll add a small delay so that we can see the change. So you will see the LED blinking for a second, and so here we have it. It's just lines of code, and we have not touched anything in the files here, and we have created our application. All right, so we just open up the quick panel. You can click on program, which will first do the build, and then it will program the kit. So I have my okay, I think I have the BLE kit connected. I think I've chosen the proto kit here, so I need to change that. Okay, yeah, I think as part of the demonstration, I think I enabled UART in, yeah, so I'll need to remove that. You will only come into the configurator when you want to use PDL specific APIs. Otherwise, if you're using HAL, you will at any point you'll not come into the device configurator. Okay, so I'd enabled UART and not set the parameters, so that's why I'm getting errors. I'll just remove everything and click build here. The first build is going to take some time, but all the subsequent builds are going to be faster because it only checks what files have changed and then does the build. So you'll see that it is much faster now than the initial build. And now I can use the library manager to change the active BSP. So here you will see if I hover over CYBSP user LED1, it points to 13.7, right? And this is basically the pin assigned to the LED on the proto kit. And now I want to go to the BLE kit which is connected. So I have it here already open. So I'll choose the active BSP as the BLE kit. Okay, and I'll click on apply. So when I click OK, it's gonna basically update the makefile variable called target, and it will assign the value of cyble. Okay. So we have successfully updated the project, and now if I just do a build, okay, I'm just checking both the kits, and I realized that the user LED one for both the kits is 13.7, and yeah, if it was different, basically, I think you all get the point. If it was assigned to a different pin on the boards, then this automatically updates to that particular board. Okay, so until it builds, let's jump back into the presentation here. So as I mentioned, we have three different options now. So what do you use? And you can use all of them, or you can choose to use only one of them. But if you're using all of them, let's say you are using the HAL and the PDL, then you will need to make sure that you are not, configuring something and creating a conflict. By conflict, what I mean is, if you enable uh, probably if you enable UART, and let's say that the HAL is initializing the UART, and then the PDL goes on to disable it, and then the HAL is trying to print something, and then it's going to fail because the PDL has disabled it. Because finally, even though you use the HAL or the PDL, it is going to talk to the same hardware block, and if you do not take care of um, using them appropriately, then it's going to cause conflicts and it's going to cause failure. So it's the developer's responsibility to use either of them, and you will need to use PDL because HAL is just a subset of the functions uh, that the PDL can do. So HAL will just give you some functions, and it's going to make it very easier for you to interact with the driver, but it does not have all the functions and all the functionalities right now. So you will need to make use of PDL for those other functions that you need, and that's the reason why I have this slide. So you can choose to use either the PDL or the HAL, and it's it if you need to just take care that there's no conflict, and using either of them, the code which gets generated, so you won't have the HAL specific code, uh, basically overwriting anything which has been generated by the PDL. So they are completely isolated, and you won't see HAL stepping on any configuration code. All right. So if the build has finished, I'll just go ahead and program. Okay, it has programmed my kit, and let me just start video. Okay, so if you see here, I have the kit blinking, the LED blinking on the kit, and I have other boards connected to, and I can just change the active BSP, and you will see the LED blinking on any of the kits, and none of the code needs to change. Okay, so a single code, and it can do the same functionality on all the boards, right? So that is why everything is easier now in 2.0. Now, talking about the middleware, I showed you where you can enable the middleware, and all of this is hosted on GitHub, and you can choose to download them from there, or you can use the library manager to fetch them and get them into your project directory. We have libraries for BT SDK, AWS IoT, Wi-Fi, and BLE also. And the point here is that we have a lot of libraries, and you can just choose to use the ones you want based on your requirement. And to help you with that, we have created examples for each one of them. So we have Modus Toolbox examples, examples for Bluetooth SDK, examples on for PSOC 6 devices, and also platform ecosystem specific examples like AWS IoT and Embed OS, right? So let's talk about these different ecosystems that we now support. So the first ecosystem is the PSOC 6 MCU and Bluetooth SoC. And here, all the low-level resources that we discussed are all supported. So you'll see here that in this particular table, we list the libraries, and then we also list on what ecosystems it is supported. So for MCU and Bluetooth, all the libraries are available, and some of the things like BLE, for basically Bluetooth libraries are not available yet on Embed and Amazon FreeRTOS. And these are the things that on the high level I've mentioned the important ones here. So Bluetooth SDK, captions, USB, MWin are all available for use. You can just enable it using the middleware option in Library Manager, and then just use it in your application. Okay. So most of the BSPs will support this. If not, it will be explicitly mentioned. So getting into Embed OS ecosystem, we have 3 boards which are now supported on Embed, which is the PSOC 6 BLE Pioneer Kit, the PSOC 6 Wi-Fi BT Pioneer Kit, and the PSOC 6 prototyping kit, which you all have, the 4343W Proto board. So these 3 boards support Embed OS, and we have middleware available for them on GitHub, and you can see which ones are supported, and you can choose to use them. All right. Some of the libraries like Cordio BLE is not provided by Cypress, but it is supported on our device. Okay. Yeah, this might make it seem confusing because we have a separate ecosystem for AWS, but Embed OS allows as libraries to talk to the AWS cloud, and we have libraries for that inside of Embed, which you can use. Now, going into Amazon FreeRTOS, we have 2 boards which are now supported, and they have passed the certification, and uh, we have support for Amazon FreeRTOS on almost all of the low-level resources, and the libraries that are there for Amazon FreeRTOS, most of it is third party and not something provided by Cypress, but it is supported on our kits. And to make all of this simple, I have given links to each one of them here. And this PPT itself is actually based off of software overview guide that we have. And I've just mentioned some of them. So you can always go ahead and look into this particular user guide, and look into this table, get the links for each one of them, learn more, get into the depths of it. So all of that is here in the software overview guide. And for the makefile, I already told you that if you want to understand the different options in the makefile, we have this particular KBA written, so you can refer that, and the landing pages for each of the ecosystems so that you can get started on them is all mentioned in the resources tab. Okay, so these are the different things that I wanted to cover, And the objective behind this training is not to make you an expert on Modus Toolbox, but rather to explain what all Modus Toolbox can do and what all libraries it has, what all ecosystems it supports, and give you basically a broader perspective. And then you can go back and understand each one of them in depth. And that is the main objective of this training. So hopefully it was helpful, and uh, I hope I have covered everything, because it's easy to miss something. And if you have any doubts, definitely you can ask them, because I'm done with the presentation. So I'm open to any questions that you may have, and I'll be looking into the chat option. Okay, are there any unanswered questions, Rakshit?
No, Dheeraj, I think I've answered all.
Okay, so I
Len,
think
do you have any questions?
Yes, this is Len Poma. There,
Yeah.
it has been stated in the forums, there is no plans to do a similar application builder with top design like we have in PSOC Creator. But is there a way to create some logic designs in PSOC Creator and then move them into Modus Toolbox?
If you notice, the flow that we have for Modus Toolbox is completely different from what we have in PSOC Creator. So we no longer have a schematic design based flow. All of this is now through firmware. You can control each one of them through firmware. So there is no component based design in Modus Toolbox.
Well, you have separate tools that can be invoked. Could theoretically a similar tool such as the top design be an application builder be used as a separate tool?
I mean, if that makes more sense for you, then probably we could have that request sent to the software team, because I mean I don't know what application requirement you're looking into, which cannot be done through firmware. Uh, so I mean, if you have something in mind, then you can definitely let us know, and we can pass it on to the software team.
Well, my my training is as a hardware designer, and when I first was acquainted with the PSOC's ability to essentially schematically create your hardware designs, I can then create hardware state machines in Logic, and that tremendously improved my ability to provide very reliable, very, let's say, high performance designs. And now that I don't have that access, yet some of the PSOC 6s still give me that ability to create that under the PSOC Creator. It would be nice to transfer some of that information and logic into Modus Toolbox.
Okay, so I think you're talking about UDBs, right? The power of UDBs which you had in PSOC Creator is now no longer there here. I mean, I understand what you're getting at, and yeah, it would be useful to have that. And let's see if we can probably create a standalone tool which helps you to do that. So it's all. I mean, I need to look into it. I need to pass it on to the software team, and then they can make a decision on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
At least in some cases, if I could create it under PSOC Creator and then move the file over to Modus Toolbox.
Yeah. I mean, so I cannot just say that you can do it, because the short answer is yes, because finally everything is PDL based, but the APIs that you use in PSOC Creator, it's not directly the PDL API. So if you are having any wrapper on top of them, like we have something like a UART_start, right, based on the component that you're using, and that essentially will have invoke the PDL APIs. So if you are using the PDL APIs directly in your Modus Toolbox application, then yes, it will work directly. You need not worry about changing anything. But I mean, there could be problems with different drivers and blocks. Right? There might be complexity. So I cannot simply tell that it will work, because we'll need to look into what the files get created, what the APIs are being used. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Do you have any questions? Do you want me to explain anything? If something wasn't clear, you can let me know, and I'll be more than happy to explain that.
I guess that's it. Thank you, Len, for joining the meeting. I'm sorry for the Zoom challenges that we had today. We did have more people wanting to join this meeting, and we may do another session for them sometime next week or the week after. As always, you can always reach out to us directly or through the community if you have any queries on Modis or anything in general. Thank you, everyone. We can end the call.
Well, thank you to Cypress for holding this training session. Thank you.